Welcome to Raising Scholars. I'm Jacquie Langworthy, education leader and mom, and I'm here to help you raise confident, independent learners. In every episode, you'll get simple strategies you can use right away, built on the Raise Scholar framework. Confidence, consistency, and independence, without pressure and without power struggles. Let's get into it. If you ever watched your child melt down over a small mistake, or refuse to try something new because they're afraid to mess up, you're not alone. I see it all the time. Kids who are bright, capable, eager to do well, but who completely unravel the moment something isn't perfect. And honestly, I understand that feeling deeply, because for a long time, I lived in a world of trying to make everything perfect. Perfect at work, perfect at home, perfect as a parent. But nothing will teach you about the power of good enough faster than raising children. Because children don't need perfection. They need resilience. They need to know that mistakes don't define them. They need to know they can recover. They need to know they are still capable, even when things go wrong. And today, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. Not just how to help your child feel better after mistakes, but how to help them build enough emotional strength to face challenges, recover from failure, and grow into resilient, confident scholars for life. Because resilience is not something children are born with. It's something they learn, and it's something we teach. I remember one student at my center who taught me this lesson so clearly. She was the youngest of 3 sisters, highly capable, highly driven, always pushing herself to keep up, and even surpass her older siblings. She was in the 1st grade, but already working on multiplication and division, skills typically introduced years later. She was extraordinary, but she was also fragile in a way high-performing children are. The day came for her achievement test, the test that would determine whether she was ready to move to the next level. She worked carefully, slowly, seriously. She wanted to get everything right. She wanted to prove to herself. But when I reviewed her test, she hadn't quite mastered the material yet. She was close, but not ready. And when I told her she didn't pass, the tears came immediately. Not quiet tears, not small disappointment, real heartbreak. Because to her, the mistake didn't mean I'm still learning. It meant I'm not enough. And in that moment, I knew the most important lesson had nothing to do with math. It had everything to do with resilience. So we sat together and I asked her a simple question. What do you want to be when you grow up? She looked at me and said, a doctor. And I told her something I meant completely. You would be the doctor I would trust, because she was careful, committed, thoughtful. But then I told her something even more important. You don't have to be perfect right now. You're allowed to learn. You're allowed to make mistakes. That's how you grow. And over time, she did grow. Not just academically, but emotionally. She learned that mistakes weren't the end of her story. They were a part of it. And that is especially important for high-achieving children, because the very traits that help them succeed also make them vulnerable. They want to please, they want to succeed, they want to feel capable. But that desire can quietly turn into fear. Fear of being wrong, fear of disappointing others, fear of disappointing themselves. Research confirms this. When children are praised only for being smart, they begin to avoid challenges because challenges create the risk of failure, and failure begins to feel like a threat to their identity. But here's what neuroscience teaches us. When a child makes a mistake and becomes emotionally overwhelmed, the brain enters into a state of threat. Fight, flight, or freeze. And in that state, learning stops. Logic shuts down. Correction becomes impossible. This is why regulation must come before rigor, before connection, before instruction, before problem solving. The nervous system must calm because a calm brain can learn. A distressed brain cannot. This means our first job as parents is not to correct mistakes, it's to regulate emotion. Sometimes that looks like saying nothing at all. Sometimes it looks like sitting beside them. Sometimes it looks like saying, I can see this is frustrating. Not fixing, not correcting, simply stabilizing. And this part is often harder for parents than children. Because when our children struggle, we feel it too. We tense up, we worry, we want to fix it quickly. But children don't borrow our solutions first. They borrow our emotional state. If we remain calm, their nervous system learns calm. If we remain steady, they learn steadiness. This is one of the most powerful forms of teaching we provide. Not through instruction, but through presence. And once emotional safety returns, learning can begin again. This is also where we begin to reframe mistakes. Because mistakes aren't evidence of inability, they are information. Information about what hasn't been mastered yet. Information about where growth is happening. In my center, we don't treat correction as failure. We treat correction as part of the learning process. When students identify their own mistakes, something shifts. Ownership forms, confidence grows. They begin to trust themselves, not because they never make mistakes, but because they know they can recover. And that brings us directly back to one of the core pillars of the Raise Scholar framework: regulation before rigor. Emotional stability creates the foundation for intellectual growth. Without regulation, rigor becomes threat. With regulation, rigor becomes opportunity. This is how resilience is built, not by avoiding mistakes, but by learning to move through them. And this is where language matters, because the words we use shape how our children interpret their experience. Instead of saying, "You got this wrong," we can say, "Let's look at what happened." Instead of saying, "You should know this," we can say, "You're still learning this." This small shift removes shame and replaces it with curiosity. And curiosity is where growth lives. So here's something simple you can begin tonight. The next time your child makes a mistake, pause. Not to correct, not to fix, but to regulate. Take a breath together. Slow the moment down. Create safety first, because in that moment, you're teaching something far greater than academics. You're teaching emotional strength. You're teaching recovery. You're teaching resilience. And over time, these moments accumulate and children begin to trust themselves, not because they never fail, but because they know they can recover. And that builds scholars, not perfection, but resilience. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time. If this episode resonated with you, the most powerful thing you can do is take one small step today. Consistency, not perfection, is what changes outcomes. And if you found value in this conversation, I invite you to subscribe, share this episode with another parent, and continue this journey with me. You can also visit the link in the show notes for additional resources, tools, and ways to support your child's growth. Because the work you're doing matters more than you realize. You're not just helping your child succeed in school, you're helping them build confidence, independence, and belief in themselves. This is Raising Scholars, and I'm Jacquie Langworthy, cheering you on as you raise a confident, independent scholar. I'll see you in the next episode.